somebody disagrees, I think we should table it till next month. Laura can determine the page cost, and we can, if she's unable, if you're unable to have a reasonable guesstimate at the hours, then we pick $25 or $30 and go with it. But I don't, are we gonna resolve it tonight?
Well, I'll make this comment. We've been working on this 3 months, and it's not completed. To me, it's something that should be pretty simple, and we're making a mountain out of a molehill. This needs to get completed. One way or the other, we need to come up with something reasonable. I agree with you, it's not gonna get done tonight. I agree with tabling it. And it should be worked on, and we can add it on to one of these budget meetings and go, you know.
Can I just add, for purposes of what we're doing right now, the statute allows us to charge the amounts that are listed here, right? Our actual out-of-pocket costs we can charge. If there's a cost for toner, we can allocate that as part of our fee. If there's a cost for Laura to do some of the work locating these documents, we can add that as part of our fee. There's a cost for paper. Again, we can calculate that, add that to our fee. What this is, I think this, the fee schedule, I think we should look at that as something going forward, right? Long term, that's the schedule we're going to adopt for all future responses. So I think we can kind of separate these two. We can charge the actual out-of-pocket fees that we've incurred. Thank you, that's the right word. Yeah, those are the amounts that we can charge for our current records request response. I would view this as more of a forward-looking document that for all requests from here forward, here's how we're going to address them.
Let's adopt this. So I think we need to determine that cost per page to see if it's in line with this or not.
I agree.
So we need a motion. We need a motion to table it till one of these.
We need a motion to, with what we have right now with the open requests, to figure out what it's costing us and charge that for the current ones, correct?
No, you don't need a motion for that. That's allowable under by statute.
The problem is that the question has come up numerous times on what that amount actually should be. Which is why it's been on our agenda, is that the question has been asked, what is the amount? And that's why it's on the agenda tonight. I understand you're saying that we can do it under statute. The question has been raised to us, what under statute is that number? That's why it's here tonight, is again for us as the board to define that. That's why it's on the agenda.
Right, it's going to depend on whether we're looking at a paper response or whether we're looking at converting documents. And I think most of what we'll be able to do is going to be electronic, which will take a lot of those costs out of what we would pass along. If we can do that electronically, then we don't have to incur the printing costs. So I guess my point is, for each one of the, I think we've got at least 4 of them pending right now, possibly more. There's going to be a slightly different dollar amount arrived at determining what that's going to be. So I can't sit here and tell you that there's a blanket number that we should approve tonight.
Well, everything else is pretty much cost of materials other than where it's time, correct?
Right.
So I suggest we just accept, or whatever the right word is, the $30 per hour that we charge plus cost of materials.
Are you comfortable with that word?
Yeah, I don't care how much you guys want to charge per hour. I just have to have something because the guy's been pretty patient. Hasn't reached out about the absentee ballot one. That's the one where 2 of them were right around 240 pages each. And I had to make a copy, redact it, and then make a copy of that, so I have my copy of the redacted copy. So that one's gonna cost a little bit for the materials, and then I can't charge for the redaction time but I can charge for validating the sheets match up to the originals, so that, you know, if I started with 240, I ended up with 240, whatever. And then I can figure out how much the paper costs based on the current charge. I'm not clear on the toner though. How would I determine a toner cost? Is that on there at all?
It's, well, I think what they've done, at least at the state level, they've just built that number in. You don't see it, but I think that's part of their calculation and how they come up with a hard copy fee for whether it's black and white or whether it's color. And-
That was at 1 cent and 6 cents?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And I think our response to that, if we chose to go with 15 cents per page, then we wouldn't have to track the actual toner that would be built into the number that we're using.
Yeah, because I did have to buy a new toner too, because it's took a lot. But yeah, I'm fine with whatever hourly rate you want to charge for this.
I said we put it to bed tonight.
Can we charge 15 cents a copy regardless of what it is? I mean, in your mind?
I think you can, yes.
Then I make a motion that we charge $30 an hour for the clerk's wages, and we charge 15 cents per copy regardless of color or black and white for anyone who is requesting a hard copy of an open records request.
The motion's been made, that Laura's time is worth $30 an hour. We will charge 15 cents a copy, whether it's color or black and white. Is there a second?
Discussion first, plus cost of, whatever the actual cost is, if there's flash drives or DVDs or things like the other medium that's included. Add that to it.
I would accept that amendment.
With the amendment, charging for any other materials that are needed.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Number 4, discussion and possible action on the Bobcat and attachments and the power washer.
And I did put in your packets just the documentation I had on that. The check stub and then the receipt
Okay,
that was given.
I know this to be a fact that the commission is offering to pay us for the pressure washer, whatever it is, the $4,700 and what? $84, I think it is.
48.
Yeah. 47.48.
So they're making that offer.
I would make a motion that the town of Meyer accept payment from the airport commission in the amount of $4,748 in trade for the interest of the power washer that was purchased with the ARPA funds.
Any discussion on that, Rob?
No.
Okay, is there a second? I know I didn't read it back, but is there a second?
You got a second?
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Nay.
Okay, now, the Bobcat is another subject. And Al's gonna tell us all about what we can do there.
I am.
Well, I mean, we've discussed this matter through email, and you've given your opinion on it. It's my understanding that the whole process with the Bobcat was done incorrectly, is that right?
Well, there's not what I understand is that there was never a formal motion before the airport commission. So the contract that was distributed between the town and the airport commission for the lease, that is, between the town and the airport commission, was never properly done. So the lease is invalid. So now we have a Bobcat and the attachments that are the property of the town. The town can do what it wants with it.
Has there been any discussion about what happens with the Bobcat during the period of time that we're trying to figure out what to do with the Bobcat? Or any correspondence between the airport commission or a town board member or attorney to attorney as far as, are they open to the idea of trying to facilitate a lease that meets the needs of either or both parties in a fashion that maybe is more official than the last attempt?
So we talk about a lease between the town and the airport commission, where the airport commission would lease space for the town to maintain the Bobcat and the equipment?
That's one option, if the first option in my mind, which would be to attempt to do something with a lease for the equipment and have it go through, I'll say, the proper channels of approval to attempt to validate a lease for the Bobcat. I don't know.
So what you're saying is
If that-
try to negotiate a new lease.
Yes.
That'll work for both of us, the town and the airport.
I agree, that would be my first option as well, to make that clear.
I believe from the email that we got that it was essentially a give it back to you, and I don't know if there was more to it than that or not, as far as potential possibility one way or the other, but obviously we're sitting with a piece of equipment that's now used, and in my own mind, if there's a way to salvage, I'll say, the lost costs of something that isn't really that old to begin with, that it makes more sense to do it that way than it does to try to sell something at 80% of the value of it,
Or
because,
less.
I mean, I think there's about 15 hours on that thing or less, but it's probably worth about 15 grand less than it was when we bought it. So to me, lost cost over value and trying to find something that works should be a motivator, but if that's not their intent, then we need to go a different direction, but I don't know if there has been that conversation or not.
Have you had any discussions as a member of the board?
I have.
I'm talking to friends.
Sorry, yeah.
No, no worries.
I've not had any discussions, I should get the actual invoice. Was that in here?
Yeah.
I should probably reach out to those people, because a lot of times when it comes to municipal bidding, you know, they're not too worried about making very much money, and it may be low. I will check into, see what they feel it's worth. I don't think there's even 5 hours on that unit. Some of the attachments haven't even been hooked up.
I think we need to make every attempt to try to resolve this and negotiate a new lease with them, because I see significant value to the town in an emergency, to have that available to us to assist Ron and Northwest Services when they may not be available, or to get to places that they're not able to get right away to help our constituents.
One concern I have right now, having learned this about the lease, is the unit even insured?
Well, all of that would have to be covered in a new negotiated lease.
Well, I'm saying right now, I mean,
I believe it is insured, that's my understanding. And that was part of the concern from the airport commission, was that if the town had persons using the equipment that were not properly trained, that would make it dangerous to the insurance coverage that the airport commission had. So my assumption is, I don't know this for a fact, that they do have
But Frank
insurance in
makes a good
place.
point. If they, because the lease is invalid, if they've stopped the insurance on it, we need to know that. We need to understand.
what we're seeing is, the lease is no good. Now it doesn't fall under the airport. It comes back to the town. It's like insuring your car.
Well, yeah, but if they've taken out an insurance policy on it, it would still be covered unless they've gone ahead and canceled it, and that's what we have to find out.
Okay, there is a meeting on the 22nd, I'll add that to the agenda, the commission meeting.
Engage their interest, if you would, in
So,
pursuing a new lease.
To me, without spending, I understand there's some mixed feelings and heartburn about this entire thing, and it is what it is at this point, but to me, the question is there any interest whatsoever in trying to, I'll say negotiate a lease, not renegotiate a lease, but, if the answer is no, then it's simple, then we come back and we figure out what we're gonna do with it. Are we gonna keep it, are we gonna sell it, are we gonna horse trade it for something? I mean,
Just
one
understand
or
all
the
our
other.
options before we rush in that decision.
But I would assume that hopefully Laura would be able to reach out to the airport commission and ask, or Frank, or whatever, whoever it needs to be, to ask, number one, is there still insurance on it? And react to that accordingly, but number two, is there any interest whatsoever into looking at a lease? And, hence my reason for addressing the pressure washer first, is because I don't think we have any combined interest in that whatsoever. At least not that I can think of. I'm assuming we could, if we ever wanted to pressure wash the town hall, we could figure out how to do it or whatever, but,
Do we need a motion to,
I think so, we need a,
I make a motion that we table old business number 4 to a future meeting, whether it be one of our budget meetings or the November town board meeting, after we gain and gather further information from the commission, airport commission, and potentially investigating what we could get for somebody to buy this from us. What's the worth, what's it valued at?
okay, motion's been made to table this item number 4, the Bobcat, until we speak to the airport commission to see if there's any interest in negotiating a new contract for the Bobcat, where both parties would be satisfied. And I will also look into finding out exactly what the thing is valued at. Is there a second?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Discussion and possible action on the emergency election plan.
Right, this is about as far as I got, with the other stuff that have come up, but we sat for, I think it was like an hour and a half or so with my, election inspectors. And we just looked at, I think it was 2 or 3 different sample emergency election plans that other, municipalities had. And I believe it was the one from Madison that they liked the best, so, but they came up with some questions about things that we might need to do in the town hall, or things that we might need to do if we can't use the town hall for elections. So I just need to write this up into a more formal presentation to the board, and then take the samples that we have and rewrite them to be specific to the town. And I just have not had time to do that yet.
Do we have let's say there's something wrong with the town hall itself, do we have an alternative site?
That's part of that, where do we go, and who do we have to talk to if we need to go someplace else? Because this came up because there was a town hall where they had to move their voting because someone that lived next door was upset about a tree that was being cut down, and so they brandished a gun, and so they had to move the voting out of their particular usual location. So we just need to know particulars about where could we go, who would we work with, things like that.
Would this
So,
be as simple as, on election days, reserving the room at the community room at the high school?
I
And
guess
having that as a fallback?
right, I guess it would just depend on what they have that day.
Well, we would
Yeah.
know the election dates well in
Yes.
advance that we could
Yep.
contact them. That
Yep.
may be an option for us.
So is your anticipation with this, Laura, that these items are gonna be expanded upon and worked into like an SOP for
Yes.
this, or
Yeah, and then their concern was, because the budget was tight and there were things that they thought that we should have available in the town hall. And we're getting so close to the end of the year too, that it's something that we would wanna consider for next year's budget. And I know that, I looked to see back in 2022 is when we last had a 4 election year. And I think we set the budget at 9,000, I think we used maybe 7,500 of that. So, something to consider when we're talking about the budget for
Have you-
the election expenses.
Have you costed this stuff out?
No,
yet?
no, I haven't had time to do that either.
And is part of this coming up with a communication plan, if we have to change the location, how it's communicated to
Right.
the
Yeah.
constituents?
Yeah, so there's a lot more to be done on this to flesh it out, but I just not had the time to do it.
So, we're gonna table this then?
I don't think we
Well,
have anything to take action on one way or the other.
Yeah, there isn't anything.
I make a motion, we table
Well,
two,
she said you don't have to.
oh, we don't have to?
No.
Okay.
Number 6, discussion and possible action to approve Jay Zawerschnik's request to deed Truman Lane to him. Now, were you contacted on this?
It was not.
He was not contacted.
We'll have to do that. In quick overview, essentially, we have a old easemented road right of way that has potentially 2 owners on either side of the ingress egress of the right of way, and the owner at the end of the road has requested that we essentially turn over the ownership and use of that road solely to them. My question last month on this was, in a traditional platted road right-of-way, that right-of-way gets divided against or amongst the 2 abutting property owners in a case like this, where there is a common parcel that crosses a portion of it that had apparently at some point deeded access as a road right-of-way. What that process would be to dissolve or include the road right-of-way into the parcel at the end of the road. Obviously, we're shooting from the hip and you have no idea what we're talking about, so I would.
So am I understanding this, that there's the roadway and then there are neighbors on either side of the roadway, and then there's someone at the end of the road also, and the person at the end of the road
Correct.
wants possession of the roadway?
Correct. The 2 adjacent properties, as you drive along it, that would be left and right, are owned by the same person. They're agricultural at this point, they're in farmland preservation. The gentleman who lives at the end of the driveway is the gentleman that's asking to have the road rights, so to speak, turned over to him as his private driveway. It's 10 feet wide of asphalt. And in the grand scheme of things, it needs maintenance and whatnot. And he would prefer to do it himself rather than to wait and or rely on or budgeting for that to happen, so,
Does he have access to his parcel by a means other than that road?
no,
So he's landlocked without it?
correct. So it essentially has to be a portion of his parcel or parcels, or remain a public right of way.
Josh, I think there's a statute, maybe 61 point something, that covers abandoning a road if the town gives it up, but you can't landlock somebody. So it's covered in there if you wanna check that out.
Yeah,
The
who
road,
maintains,
if the property owner owns one side and the property owner owns the other side, you divvy it up, but if there's somebody who owns both sides, it all goes to the property owner. So you might wanna check that out.
yeah, that would be my normal answer, would be that the properties on both sides would split the ownership of the road, but if doing that results in creating a landlocked parcel, we got a problem there. is, who maintains the road right now?
Top of Palmyra,
So it is town.
How many feet is it again, Josh, do you remember?
off the top of my head, I don't.
Does,
Very well.
So the last time, I guess, the road got fixed up, he paid for half, didn't he?
Yeah,
He paid for half the whole thing.
it got chip sealed, I think, in 2016.
and I think we're going to check to see if, and maybe you already knew it, I don't remember. We're gonna just check to see if Tom had other access to his
Correct.
two sides.
There's a Jefferson County zoning portion of this that goes into it because it's along a county highway, which means that the town doesn't have the authority to grant a driveway access off of a county highway, the county would have to do it, so.
Tom doesn't have access other than this road?
Well, he has frontage, whether the county would or would not allow a field access point is not my choice at this point. I would move that we table old business, item number 6, until we can find findings of fact from the attorney on the process to potentially dissolve the right-of-way, as well as findings of fact from Jefferson County Highway Department and Jefferson County Zoning Department regarding the creation of field access for the Burlington parcel.
A motion been made to table item number 6, discussion possible action to approve Jay's request to deed Truon Lane. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
You guys send me whatever information you have on that, take a look at it.
New business, discussion and possible action on 2023-004 ordinance rescinding ordinance 2023-002 ordinance creating a 5-person board.
Yes, I brought this up at the last meeting, and was not fully prepared at the time because I didn't have a lot of the numbers and facts to go into great detail as to why I brought it up. But now that we've had budget meetings for the last few weeks, we have a significant shortfall going into the budget for 2024. And while I recognize that, I'll just speak for myself rather than everybody, I discussed significantly going to a 5-person board leading up to the election. I also talked specifically about being fiscally responsible and making sure that we hold our costs down so that, so that we are fiscally responsible. And with the shortfall we have going into the year and with increased cost for road maintenance, road construction, legal fees, other things that are going up in cost, we have a significant shortfall, at least at this point, going into 2024. So I fully still support going to a 5-person board. I would, this is my opinion, if we did rescind this ordinance, I would expect that next year we would reevaluate this based on where the budget is at. So that's my discussion on this. I can make a motion and there can be other discussion, or do you want to talk before I do?
Well, Josh, do you have anything to say?
Not entirely, I don't want to say surprised because it was last month, but, my concerns in the grand scheme of things are making sure that we do our diligence as board members to assign roles and whatnot. In my own opinion, it's backwards on doing that. I also understand that, opinions may or may not migrate one way or the other, so there's. To me, if the board is wanting to go to a 5-person board, it does get more chaotic in an even year. I should say an odd year than it would be in an even year, as far as how the election works and whether that's the right or wrong reason as well, obviously, is up to opinion, but.
Is there a motion?
I I guess I should explain what I mean by fiscal responsible. We'll be adding 2 salaries to the budget for 2024, increasing that cost as well. I make a motion that we rescind, I make a motion that we pass ordinance 2023-004, rescinding ordinance 2023-002, creating a 5-person board.
Motion's been made to pass ordinance 2023-004, rescinding ordinance 2023-002. Is there a second?
Oh, second, sorry. No, I made the motion.
Sorry, chief.
I'll second it. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay.
And I'm gonna put it as posting it today.
Can you post it today?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, out there before I leave, and then when I get home, I'll just have Frank sign it before we go.
Number 2, discussion and possible action on the official newspaper of the town of Palmyra. That's right now the Jefferson Union.
Yeah,
Now, I think I said this at the last meeting, when I went to the last WTA school, we were the only one in there that had an official newspaper anymore. Nobody else had it. That's all I can say.
So obviously we don't need one,
But
but nobody else has.
Well, we have to have an official posting.
Oh, sure, no, absolutely.
And
Is the newspaper, Laura, that is always one of our 3 postings?
no,
Okay.
no. Right now, we basically have to post at the town board outside and then the website. There is, like with the budget meeting, that has to be posted in 3 places. And then there are things that I have been putting in the newspaper, like the election notices. But part of the budget process we talked about, I was given a document that there's been legal advice given that you don't have to do that anymore if you have the town, you have one physical location and a website. So I've reached out to the Wisconsin Towns Association for a little bit more clarification on that. It could be that there's very few things that actually have to be published. I mean, if, like I think maybe when you dealt with the bids, and then if we put in an ordinance or a resolution or something that has financial fees or penalties, something like that has to be posted.
Do we have to have an official newspaper versus one we just always use?
I don't think so.
Yeah, what are other jurisdictions?
Yeah, there's no requirement that you select an official newspaper.
And what's the cost to be consistent from a fiscal standpoint? What is the cost of these ads? I'm sure it depends what it is and how big it is and
Right,
stuff
right.
like that, but there is a cost there.
Yeah, and it's different, like you said, with the size of the ad that you're putting in. Like with, the other thing is with liquor licenses, we have to post those 3 days in a row before the June meeting. But that we get paid back from the establishments. But we still have to post those, so that's another one we do have to post, but, I'll be sending you, a printout of 21 and 22, all the checks and everything by the account, so you can see in there what we've paid over the last couple of years for postings, so.
Is the word official newspaper, is that kind of a misnomer? What we're really trying to do is determine what newspaper to tell people to look at for certain announcements?
This is the first I've heard we've had an official newspaper, so
I mean, this isn't an ordinance or anything like this,
No,
right? So
I don't know.
I guess I'm not sure what
yeah.
we're voting on, talking about taken action.
Well, I think there might, is it possibly a resolution, an old resolution making that happen?
I have to look.
You have to wait back probably. So do we need to make a resolution to get rid of it?
Just to clean it up, I would say, yeah, to avoid any concern that there is an official one, right?
So I'll make a motion that, the Jefferson Union is no longer the official newspaper, and the official posting site is the web here, or the town website, and the board outside the building. Second?
Wait for other discussion, or, I mean, I'll second it, but I want to add something.
Is there any further discussion?
Yes, but that doesn't preclude us from using the Union, it's just no longer the official newspaper. Great.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Discussion and possible action on IT upgrades and services proposed by Tech Solutions.
Yeah, let me get,
You want me to hear it?
yeah, hopefully there was enough paper in there. Alright, so, where did you get me that?
Thank you.
Guess that was for you and not Alan.
So this is a quote, not an invoice, not an invoice.
Correct.
I got these lines, so.
You want me to lead off on this?
Yes.
So a little over a month ago, I made an official inquiry to Laura to inquire our IT group because of some of the open records requests that we had, some other issues that were being had with the computer, and trying to shore up, call it our IT environment per se. And finally, last week, Wednesday, got a response back from Tech Solutions and requested them to provide us with a quote of what's in front of you, which really breaks down into kind of three different quadrants. One of the concerning pieces was that his response was, I cannot urge you enough that you need to migrate to a .gov domain name for election purposes, which we obviously right now are using a centurytel.net or whatever the address technically is. So that was kind of the kickoff point to much of this, along with applying what I understand is kind of the modern day, I'll say, baseline of how municipalities operate from an IT perspective. Our computer that Laura uses primarily on a day-to-day basis on the table over there does have replication, which means that they back that up in whole as it is for disaster recovery. What we don't necessarily have, number one, obviously, is compliance with the WEC for election purposes using the centurytel.whatever email address. How we haven't got nicked on it in the past, I don't know, and if it would be an issue at some point in the future, I hope not to find out. But one of the items that I asked for is for them to migrate Laura's email address to a, whatever it may end up being, elmira.town.wi.gov email address, as well as to potentially migrate 3 existing private emails to a townofpelmira.gov domain as well. That email would be hosted by the town, technically hosted by Technology Solutions. But ultimately, if we migrated the entirety of what's being done from the town board's perspective off of personal, call it personal platforms, into this enroll in online exchange online archiving, we would be able to turn the open records requests over to our IT company. They would withdraw the native files, and I wouldn't have to sit in front of my computer for 3.5 weeks trying to come up with a way to do all of this kind of thing. It takes the board, it takes the clerk, it takes everyone directly out of it. There is also a statutory compliance problem that we have because the email that we have is not actively backed up, which means that at any point in time, delete, delete, double delete, that email no longer exists. So what I've asked them to do, breaking the first piece of this down, there's a bunch of labor-related items. They're estimating a quantity of 10 hours to complete it. Their rate is $95 an hour. It would be to obtain and implement a .gov domain name for the town's use. It would be to obtain and implement service through Microsoft 365 for things like Word, Excel, PowerPoint, whatever else may go into it. Also to migrate through email addresses, obtain the Exchange online archiving, and then also to enroll us into the Department of Administration's Cisco security appliance for email. There's been some phishing escapades going on between email correspondence where people are posing as various members of this board and or employees, and this pretty much puts a stop to the entirety of all of that.
Why would there only be 3 instead of 4? Migrate 3 existing privately managed email accounts.
Because the existing email account that Laura uses is publicly maintained from the town's perspective.
All right.
Obviously, whether you know that or not, you look at on the website, the 3 board members all have .gmail, .outlook, whatever types of emails, and this would essentially put it all on the same platform, so that's all part of that. Additionally, I asked them for a few different iterations. Moving to the top of the next page, the monthly 365 license, there's 2 different platforms realistically that we could use. One of them, the $12.50 a seat for the business standard, includes the desktop applications, which would be on a laptop. The Business Basic essentially is an online portal that you would log in through Office 365. You would still have full functionality of Word and Excel and all the other suite that goes along with Office, but there is nothing downloaded on a computer, which makes it a little easier to manage in the grand scheme of things, and it's a little cheaper because, at least in my universe, I'm a lot on my phone, on a stream book here and that type of thing, and it doesn't actively support desktop apps very easily. So that's that $20. Essentially, what that comes out to is 3 seats at $6 and 1 seat at $12.50. The difference in between there is if that we don't buy it and we don't install it, they would charge us $14 and $7.50 a month rather than having it as a recurring thing. Call it through our credit card, which I honestly don't know that we even have one of those.
No.
The additional things moving down, set up OneDrive and SharePoint, expand the Carbonite replication to 4 seats. That Carbonite replication again is third-party hosting all the data so that it is what it is and it is where it is, and we don't have any issues from a disaster recovery standpoint again of the laptop not wanting to boot and us not being able to get into the computer. Sorry, my voice is failing here. $150 per year. That would be if we wanted. Let me back up. SharePoint and OneDrive are 2 different cloud-hosted appliances that we could utilize so that we don't necessarily always have to pester Laura and say, hey, can you pull the resolution? Hey, can you pull the minutes? Hey, can you pull this? Hey, can you pull that? SharePoint is indeed just that. It's an online cloud-hosted deal through Microsoft where the file repository for the town is online and accessible. OneDrive could be set up so that it's a personal drive per se per position. Should there be any sort of confidential information or personal related information or what have you, those would all kind of be part of that 365 suite. A whole bunch of the next section of this was related to the fact that I wasn't aware that, hopefully the laptop is here, the other laptop
Yes.
and the expansion drive. At one point in time, through correspondence with Laura, there were a few, I'm gonna call them software appliances that were downloaded on the old laptop that didn't play well with the one that she's got in front of her. So these next items, the setup rate, the ESET security, and the Carbonite backups, along with setting up a second computer, those more or less are all null and void at this point. Because in the last 3 days since I talked to him the first time, I found out that we don't actually actively use that laptop. It essentially is a secondary piece of hardware. Should that thing ever die, we've got something that we could set up.
So when you're talking from here down to here is not needed?
You're looking at where it starts, our normal rate is $95 an hour for on-site remote, with a $50 an hour service.
Okay.
That one up into the, down to the one that says Ubiquity, the Ubiquity AP,
Including that one or?
no,
Above that?
to that,
Okay.
yes.
All right, above that, so that's, 150, 180, 275 roughly. That, if this 2,200 could be, basically takes it down to about $2,000.
With that point of it, yes.
Okay.
The Ubiquity access point and the access point setup, along with the managed IT services for Wi-Fi would be, that was kind of through the discussion and